Go.
Alright, so now that we've got our sauce in there and it's all nice and heated up, then we're going to go ahead and use this better than beef, better than bouillon chicken base. I usually do, I'm pretty good about, I like to go heavy on this because that's all the flavor. It's made from real chicken, which is great, as opposed to getting that liquid stuff and the Knorr stuff that I don't really care for. It takes a lot longer to dissolve. This actually I'll do about maybe like 3 tablespoons. You can add however much you want. I actually like it to be on the stronger side. So then you want to really dissolve it down into some hot water. That way when you pour it into your mixture here, it's gonna, again, just kind of transition very easily into the pot. So just pour that in there. And then don't pour the whole thing in there, just kind of see how it tastes. You know, I always say taste your product before, you know, don't just serve it. And what I'll do is I'll take a spoon and give it a taste real quick to make sure it's got almost like a, not super salty, but slight salty. I need a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the whole thing in there since I know it needed a little bit more than I anticipated. And then let that heat up and just combine real well with that. I'll try that again. That's better. If it's too much, you add too much, you can always just add more water to it or more milk. And that's going to just kind of thin it out so it's not too salty or too overpowering. Again, I got my roux all set up in here. As you can see, the roux is actually starting to get kind of a little bit on the clumpy side, as you can see right there when I do that. That's showing you that it's just about done. It's cooking off. You don't want it to cook off too much because then it'll start to brown. And as it browns and stuff, it changes the color of your sauce, and you don't want that because, well, unless you're wanting a brown roux or a dark roux, which you can make for like darker sauces. So now that that's boiling, I'm going to go ahead and add my roux in there. And you start out small, just like I did with the chicken broth, chicken base. I'll add like half of this, and this is 2 sticks of butter, and I added probably around a cup of flour to it, just all-purpose flour. You don't want to do too much flour because then of course it'll be clumpy, and you don't want the clumpiness. So, I don't hear me.
Oh, come.
You need to come around here and look at this pot. So as you can see, I poured it in there, and you don't want to pour too much of it in there because it still will cook off a little bit. And with the boiling water, going from the roux pan to here, the roux will start to thicken up even more. Of course, if you put the entire roux container inside this pot, it'll thicken up, it'll turn like lava, and then you have to keep adding hot water to it to thin it out. It just kind of makes for a mess trying to fix something. It's just easier just to start small, kind of like anything else. We start out with a small dose, and then we work our way up to a larger dose until we find the therapeutic effect. And then, as you can see, it's starting to thicken up just a little bit, not a whole lot. You can see those capers in there and a couple of the herbs in there. I'm going to add a little bit more.
It smells good.
And then let that heat up a little bit more. And again, you don't have to have it as thick as what the completed thickness of Alfredo sauce is, because you're going to add cheese, you're going to add the Asiago, the Romano, the Parmesan, some mozzarella, and you could even add in your own types of cheese. So if you like provolone, if you like cheddar cheese, you can put cheddar in there because that is flavorful. You put Munster in there, you know, whatever you like. It's preference, strictly preference. The key is to constantly stir this thing. So you're just standing here, just absorbing all this beautiful humidity and moisture in your face and steam, but it's good for the pores. So as you can see, it's starting to thicken up. If you look at it, you can look at the spoon, it's starting to thicken up a little bit more, which is exactly what we want. the chicken flavoring that we put in there, you don't need to go overboard on it, just because you're going to add the cheese. You're going to add the Asiago cheese. You're going to add the Parmesan cheese. You're going to add the Romano cheese. All those cheeses are going to add more salt. They're going to add more flavor to it. So you can finish them off with just that. Now, if you find out that you put too much cheese in there and too much chicken base after it's all completed, add a little water to it, warm water to it, or a little bit of warm milk. That'll thin it out. Non-fat milk will thin it out even more because there's less fat in there, so it'll thicken it out, or thin it out rather. And all we're doing now is just waiting for it to completely boil, heat up. The reason we did the roux and pre-cooked it, is because we didn't want to have that much of a waiting time for cook time on the roux inside the sauce here. So we'll let that boil up, and then I've got some real mozzarella cheese that I like to actually add in as well, because although it's not like your typical mozzarella cheese that you get here, the low moisture part skim, this stuff is real. It doesn't have a huge amount of flavor, but it has that bold, thicker type of consistency that makes the pasta, I think, in my opinion, makes it taste a lot better. So as you can see, it's as you start to look at the sauce, you notice that there's little film that's creating around. You don't want that film because that'll break. You really want to keep stirring it. If you've ever had any kind of dish where you had to prevent it from breaking, so this is one of them, like Béarnaise sauce, hollandaise sauce, you have to constantly keep whipping it. Dulce de leche, you have to constantly stir it. That you have to stir for hours.
Battery's flashing, it's about to die. Did you hear me? The battery's flashing, it's about to die.
Or you can pause it.